guys, Tanya here. Today we have a video. It's going to be an art journal video because eventually the things that I'm going to make is going to go in our art journal. But I need to do some creative stuff with a jelly plate. So this is a jelly plate and I want to use these new stamps by JoFY. So PaperArtsy, surprise, surprise. We have some new stamps here from JoFY, match kind of her previous series. So we have, like, this is a previous release of hers. There's a bunch. So she has several releases that have kind of the same look and feel. So what I want to do is kind of make a flower garden using all of these stamps. I'm going to put them in my journal, but I don't want to get out my paper and kind of find all those scraps of paper and cut it out. I mean, I'm going to cut it out, but I want to play with my paints and my jelly plate. So this video will use just regular paper. So I have here some book paper that we tore out of a book that I'm going to use as a background. I have regular just paper. This is a thicker cardstock. It doesn't matter. You can use, if you use copy paper, it's a little too thin. Sometimes your paint kind of moves and sticks around. So I like to use, I believe this is like 80-pound cardstock paper. So we're going to use some of that. I am going to use my jelly plate and some PaperArtsy paints, and we're going to make, I'm going to show you how to do stencils to make your own pattern paper. We're going to paint some background paper. Then we're going to come back and stamp with these stamps and on top of the paper that you've made, and then make our flower garden. So kind of fussy cut it around. I'll show you some tricks of making this a 3D effect. So JoFY has built these stamps where if I stamped this 3 times, I can cut each of these pieces out, and when I glue it together, it makes that 3D effect. So it's a really cool background type of, or really cool kind of flower to put in. Then we can stamp this flower in the background, kind of like you have a flower garden. So we'll get to that part later. But we're gonna use this stamp. Not sure how I'm gonna use this. We'll figure it out. And then we'll have this stamp here. So I have multiple options here, right? If you stamp this 3 times, you have 1, 2, 3 pieces that we can cut out and make 3D effect. She's built these, like this is the same as this middle size, but your stamp, she's made it separate so it's easier to kind of to cut out and stamp. This goes into here so you can do it multiple options. This right here has a matching stencil. So this is JoFY 98. This stencil is PS 230. And it fits that image, right? So some of these shapes are of this same stencil. You can't see very well. There you go. So you can kind of see that. So that's PS 230. We also have this stencil we're going to use. So this is kind of that squiggly thing that we saw in before. Okay, so some of that squiggly design. So we'll create some really cool backgrounds using this. We're going to use PaperArtsy stamp. These are paints, PaperArtsy paints. So I have neutrals. I have a Snowflake and a buff, just in case. You always need to have white around. Then I picked out 4 kind of pinkish, plumish colors. I have Cherry Blossom Rose, Spanish Mulberry, and Professor Plum. Okay, these are all opaque colors, so these will go well with kind of the backgrounds that we want to make. And then I have, for the greens, I have guacamole, zucchini, and tinned peas. So that'll give us, for some of the leaves, so I have a stamp set here. This is JoFY 75, has a really cool leaf here that we're going to use. And then this JoFY 94 that has this kind of viney, flowery thing here. So we'll use that. And finally, we may use some other ones, but this has, as you're building a garden, right? You have a flower garden, you don't just have flowers, you have other leafy things. So this has a kind of the bulbs. So this is a really cool piece that we're going to use. And we might use this as well. So this has some littler pieces of this little flower. Okay, so this is JoFY 89. So I'll list all of these products down below in the comments section. And I may not use all of those, but we have them ready. And we have Archival ink, so when we get to the stamping, I'll use Archival ink and a acrylic block to stamp with, and then scissors, of course, and a brayer. A brayer, very important brayer, and paintbrush, water, that type of thing, okay? So the first step we're gonna do, we're going to make some paper. So I have this jelly plate. When you get a jelly plate, it comes in a little container. So this is a little 6x6 plate. There are all kinds of sizes. So there's 12 by 12, there's 8 by 10. Ranger makes a bunch of them. Gel Press makes a bunch of them. We carry some at the store. I'd be happy to order some if you do not have any. I like the versatility of the 6x6. I just carry it around with me whenever I need it. So it comes in this little container. Don't throw this away because it's easier to store. Then it also has 2 plastic pieces here. So I'm just going to stick this down to my craft mat. I have this gel plate, or I have the gel plate already. Silly Tanya. I also have a piece of paper that I'm going to keep on the side because I can, instead of wiping off and wasting paint with my baby wipe or my paper towel, I'm going to take the residual paint and put it on this piece of paper because I could probably use this piece of paper sometime for something, okay? So just play, get some paper out, get some paint out, and here we go. So I'm going to start with this Professor Plum, and I'm gonna put like a little dot. So remember, less is more here. You'll often hear me say that, but less is more. Okay, so Professor Plum, and I'm gonna do the rose. So I think I did enough damage. We have a bunch of greens. Okay, so a bunch of green paper. It's still a little wet, so if you have room, like spread them out a little bit, but I have a whole variety of greens that I'm gonna use. A bunch of pinks that I'm gonna use, okay? Also, off camera, I created 2 papers just using a blend of those colors. Okay, so in case I wanted a solid flower for some reason, I created those 2 types of flowers, or papers, to use for flowers and for the leaves. So now I have all off camera, because that would have been fun to watch. Not really. So what I've done, all of these, not all, I have extras, right? So I have some extras left over. So we have, I've just stamped, right? So here's the green stamps. So there's the leaves, and we'll cut those out. And here I wanted this leaf some green. So I'll cut this whole thing out, but then I'll cut the pinks out and kind of lay that on top there. So greens, so I have a bunch of different greenage stamps there, okay? Then I have the flowers. So the flowers are gonna be interesting. So here's that green that I just showed you that we're gonna cut out the bulbs, okay? So we can mix and match. But this stamp, okay, so when we stamp this, see the stamp, sometimes these big rubber stamps, they'll bubble, and the inks, when you're inking it, sometimes gets onto the stamp, and that's okay. We may use the centerpiece, okay? We may just cut out that centerpiece, so don't throw these away. So even though, so maybe I didn't like the background of what this came out on the jelly print, this is very usable. Okay, so these petals are still very usable. So we stamped a bunch of these. So one flower could be each of these 3 prints. So we'll want to take like the darker could be the outside edge, then the inside we could cut this out, and then this middle piece could be here. Okay, so we'll cut those out. Same with this one. So there's multiple of that flower, multiple of this flower, okay? And some of these we may leave alone, right? So some of these are cute. So maybe we just leave that as a small flower. So we're gonna make a big like flower bush. So, right, we may use any of those pieces of it. Here's another one. It looks really busy, so I wouldn't put this in my journal page, right? Because it's like really busy and I'm not really sure what you're looking at. But once we cut these out, that pattern that you made is gonna be really cool. Okay, so that when you cut that out, it's gonna be really cool. We may put that on the inside of the flower, we may leave it blank. So the next piece of this, so here's all kinds. So here are those little tiny pink flowers that I'm gonna cut out and put on the green here, because I want the branches and the leaves to be green. This is the tip of the little flower, one of the little flowers that we stamped, okay? This I may put on this branch, right? It doesn't have to match what that stamp is. You can change it however you want in your little flower garden. So next step is going to be fussy cutting. So if you have some really good fussy cutting scissors, I know you all do. All right, so we are going to be back with all of these cut out. I'm back. So I have cut out all of these pieces we stamped them all out, and then I cut out around all these pieces. And I will now, it's like a puzzle, right? It's a big giant puzzle. Here's all the pink pieces. I cut out all the green pieces, so lots of fussy cutting. Yes, lots of fussy cutting. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use these flowers as I build kind of the pattern on that paper. So I'm using a glue stick. So I have this, it's Creative Memories. You can get them anywhere, but it's just a glue stick that comes like it's a ballpoint pen. I've taken the kind of the flowery pieces, as you can see here, and glued these on. And then I've also cut apart some of the patterns. So if you can see here, this is two pieces of that pink paper. One is the darker background, one is the lighter, and it adds a little bit of texture to that. Okay, so the next step is I'm going to put all of these flowers together. So I'm going to glue them all on. I'm going to make different patterns. So all of those different patterns that we had on the paper creates a really cool effect with these flowers. I will do one as an example. So this flower, let's say this flower. Okay, this flower has two pieces essentially. And I can take one of these little pieces. So in the stamp set that we have, I'll show it again. So in the stamp set that we have, she has one that's the same as the middle, so that you don't have to stamp both of them. You can stamp this one with the newspaper if you wanted to and put it in here, or you can do it separate. So that stamp piece of it, so I stamped this on a different pink piece of paper, and it fits really good here. So I'm going to glue that on in this middle of the flower. So I'm just going to take this pen and I'm going to color this on. And again, you can use whatever you want. I just had this handy. Has a liquid glue. I think the liquid glue or a glue stick works really well for this. Okay, so I glued that on, so it just makes a different type of a flower. I could go beyond that and I could cut, say, this little piece out and put it behind, right, and make a different layer. I don't think for that one I'm going to do, so that's one example. So be creative with how you're cutting these pieces out. Just going to take my fussy cutty scissors and I'm going to cut out. See if you can see on the pattern of the flower, you have the top layer here, and then she's kind of drawn a second layer behind. So what I'm going to do is cut out this overlay piece. This piece now can sit on top of this piece, and that kind of pushes that pattern behind. I got to match it up, match it up. Okay, so now I can glue this on and I'll have that pattern behind. So I have an extra layer of that petal. And then I can also glue, to bring that dark pink back, I can glue this on top. So you have kind of a different layer. So we essentially created our own pattern paper, stamped it on, and then we're just going to cut it out to create a different type of flower that you wouldn't be able to get. You can color with it and everything else. So what I'm going to do is take all of these flowers, all of these leaves, I'm going to glue on each of the pieces, and then I'll be right back. Okay. Hi everyone, I'm back. I have cut, we cut all those pieces. I've glued them all on, and I've done some pen work. So you've heard me say this before, but the details, the final touches in the pen work. So I have my Signo White Gel Pen, I have my Fude ball pen. I also have these 3 colors of Posca acrylic paint pens. So some of those, like this color actually matches kind of that color brand. So if you look, or color palette that I used, so I put some pen work here, some white pen work here. I colored all of the, like this was in the stamp, and then I took the white pen and added some there. So really, remember, the art is in the pen work. Here's the leaves. So I added just kind of some details there, put some white scribblies, added the white dots there, just to make it all consistent. So here's my palette. So I have a lot of these extra pieces. They look similar because they look all tied together because I have these pens that I did this pen work, okay? So now what we're gonna do is make like a garden, right? I'm gonna use this as a title, so always have hope. Okay, so I'm gonna use that as a title. I'm going to use some PaperArtsy paints. We're gonna paint a background. It's gonna be blue, right? Because the blue sky. And then the spring, we're gonna kind of set these to the side, and I'm gonna make a background, okay? So I'm gonna use 3 colors of PaperArtsy paints. So I have sand, blue Bayou, and double denim. Okay, sand, blue Bayou, and double denim. And we're going to just paint a background here, blend it out. So I'm gonna do kind of, it's gonna start dark, right? I'm gonna do a dark layer, then blend in the lighter layer, and then do a really light of this version. Then we're gonna let it dry a little bit, and I will use, I have Snowflake, which is a white, like a really white opaque. And then, I don't know, I might splatter it or something. We'll go from there, okay? So next step is that background. So I have a couple of brushes. I think I'm gonna use this one. So this is like it's a 1 1/4 inch paintbrush. I have my craft mat over here. So I'm gonna start with, I'm gonna put a dot of each of these colors on my craft mat. So blue or double denim, blue Bayou, and sand. And I'm gonna wet my brush a little bit. So I'm not, this is not gessoed at all. This is a Diane Reevely Delusions, like 8x8, I think it's 8, small square journal. It has really good paper, so it holds up to a lot of media, but it's not gessoed. So if I were just to paint on top of this, it's gonna stick. And these are really opaque paints. Okay, so in order to blend it out and make it easier to blend out a little bit, I'm gonna add a little water. So I just have a water cup here. I'm gonna add just a little water to my brush. And then I'm going to go in with a background. Just gonna take this blue, dark blue. Okay, so see how that's already blending out a little bit. I'm gonna add a little bit more water. Okay, so that I got a little bit of that, the lighter blue. So I'm gonna go dark blue on the ends, and I just have a scrap piece of paper behind to protect the journal here. So I'm going to, so that's a dark color. Okay, add a little more darker. I'm not washing my brush off in between. Okay, so then lighter with the light blue. Okay, a little more water so that it flows a little bit better. Okay, so see how that's getting lighter. So you have really thick paint, a lighter color, a little more paint. Remember, you can always add more later. It's hard to take it off if you don't have. Okay, so that's a little bit, I may want to add a little more dark to the edge there. Just gonna pick up some more dark. Okay, and blend it out a little bit. Then I'm gonna add the sand color. So it's gonna blend pretty well with that. A little more water to help the paint move a little bit. And don't worry about that line. We'll add some light blue to blend it out a little bit, but see how that changed kind of the color of the sand? So it's like a lighter blue. Okay, so this is dry-ish. Not 100% dry, but I'm not a patient person. I'm going to take the flowers that we used. I'm gonna use that Snowflake. Okay, so this flower right here, we have one of those flowers. So I might take this and do like stamping in the background with just white. Okay, so white Snowflake. So I'm gonna use my brayer with this stamp. So I'm just gonna put a little bit of the white on my mat. You can also use a stencil if you want. You could do pen work if you want. But I'm gonna put white on my brayer, and I'm gonna put this on a stamping thing. I never can remember, stamping block. And I'm literally gonna paint this on top of my stamp, okay? I think the brayer works really well because it picks up, kind of puts an even layer onto your stamp. And I'm gonna stamp it, okay? And that's okay if that didn't get all the way through. I'm not looking for a perfect image. I'm just looking for kind of a shadow. You can also use your staycation behind it because my art journal doesn't have, like it needs a solid space. So yeah, add some more white paint because I kind of like that background. I'm also going to do this with the leaves. So I used a couple of these leaf sets. So now I'm going to see where I want to place my flowers, okay? I might put my title on right now because I know that's what I want to do. I'm gonna put my title on and I'm gonna make it big, bright, and bold. So I'm gonna write it with this black Archival ink. Get my station out again. Right there. And when you're placing your flowers, know that you have this as a fold. So when your journal closes, it may fold over, and that's okay, right? You can cut it. So Diane Reebley does a trick where she cuts the flower and then just glues it on either side. You could fold it if you want to. This one, I think, because this is my main flower, right? I'm gonna put that there. So now I'm just gonna put some placement. You can change, so my garden is just gonna be here. You can change it however you want. So that's what I'm gonna do. You get the idea. I'm going to use ultra thick gel medium to put it in my journal. I might use a little bit of the glue on this kind of back pieces of it, but you could use either or if you want, any type of glue. And So I'm gonna glue this down. You don't need to watch me, so I'm gonna glue it down and I'll be right back, okay? Okay, so I've glued these down here. I used this liquid glue because it was easier just to glue this top down. I also took off, like, this little piece was gonna go here. It was in the middle. I'm likely gonna cover that up anyway, so I'll tuck this somewhere. So that's kind of the background. Then I'm gonna place this flower I have on foam tape. So I'm going to adhere that at some point. I know this is hanging off a little bit, but I'll take it off, or I'll cut it off. So now I really want to just place the rest of my flowers and tuck them behind and glue as I go. Okay, so that's all done. I'll cut these off here. All right, so there is my page, okay? So all that cutting, it has a little bit of dimension. When I fold it, see, this is gonna fold. If I fold it, that's still gonna poke up, but that's okay. All right, so look at that. There's my art journal page, all that work, all that fussy cutting, but it came out beautiful. I think the only other thing that I might do, so I'm not done. I said I was done, but I'm not. I'm gonna do some white splatters. I think just to make it messy, just because I can. This pen work, I'm going to highlight my okay, now I'm done. Art is in the pen work. Okay, now I'm done. That's it. That's what we have. Yay, thank you so much. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and give me some comments on what you'd like to see. Okay, thank you.